The shelter was unusually quiet that morning. The air smelled faintly of disinfectant and wet fur, and somewhere in the back, a soft whimper echoed against the concrete walls. Officer Daniel Hayes, a retired police officer, stepped through the door, his heart pounding for reasons he couldn't explain. He was there to help a friend evaluate a few dogs for adoption programs, but he had no idea his past was about to walk straight back into his life. Daniel had served in the K-9 unit for over a decade. His partner, Rex, wasn't just a dog, he was his lifeline. Together, they had tracked criminals through dense forests, rescued kidnapped children from hidden basements, and once even found a missing elderly woman trapped in a snowstorm. They were inseparable, until one fateful night changed everything. 14 months ago, during a high-stakes raid, gunfire erupted. In the chaos, Rex chased a suspect into the woods. Daniel called and called, his voice breaking, but Rex never returned. The search went on for weeks. Flyers, radio announcements, volunteers combing the forest, but nothing. Everyone told Daniel to move on. They said Rex was probably gone for good. But Daniel never stopped looking, never stopped hoping. Now, as Daniel walked past the shelter kennels, his eyes scanned the rows of dogs. Some barked desperately for attention, others cowered in the corners of their cages. Then he reached the last row. In the final kennel, a large German shepherd sat motionless, his head lowered. His fur was matted, patches missing, scars tracing across his legs. But it was the eyes, those deep amber eyes, that froze Daniel where he stood. Rex! It was barely a whisper, but the dog's ears twitched. Daniel stepped closer to the gate. The dog lifted his head slowly, staring hard at the man in front of him, as if trying to believe his own eyes. Then, without warning, his entire body began to tremble. A soft, heart-wrenching whimper escaped his throat. "Rex! It's me, buddy," Daniel choked out. The shepherd pressed his nose through the bars, his eyes glistening. And then, right there in front of everyone, the legendary K-9 began to cry. A shelter volunteer stood frozen. "I've never seen him react to anyone like this," she whispered. Daniel dropped to his knees, pressing his forehead against Rex's. Memories flooded back. Training in the rain, late-night patrols, the way Rex used to nudge his hand before a mission as if to say, "I've got you." When they opened the kennel, Rex practically leapt into Daniel's arms despite his weakened state. His tail wagged furiously, then slowed, as though exhaustion reminded him how much he'd been through. Took weeks before Daniel learned the truth. Rex hadn't just disappeared. He had been found injured far from town, taken in by someone who kept him chained in a backyard. Eventually, he escaped, wandering miles until animal control picked him up, starving, limping, and clearly traumatized. Why didn't he find his way home sooner? The vet's theory broke Daniel's heart. Head trauma. The injury had affected Rex's memory, leaving him disoriented for months. Yet somehow, seeing Daniel in that shelter had unlocked everything. The reunion was just the beginning. Rex's health was fragile, and many doubted he'd ever fully recover. But Daniel refused to accept that. He turned his home into a rehabilitation zone. Soft bedding, gentle therapy sessions, and slow walks that grew longer each week. Rex began to heal, not just in body but in spirit. The sparkle in his eyes returned. His old habits, sleeping at the foot of Daniel's bed, alerting to the sound of keys, came back one by one. And then, one evening, something happened that would leave Daniel's entire family speechless. It was just past midnight when Rex suddenly sprang from his bed, barking sharply at the window. Daniel knew that bark. It wasn't random. He grabbed his flashlight and went to check. Outside, near the garage, two men were attempting to break in. Rex growled, teeth bared, his voice echoing like thunder. The intruders froze before bolting into the night. The police later confirmed the men had been linked to a string of dangerous home invasions in the area. If Rex hadn't been there, the situation could have been far worse. As Daniel sat on the porch that night, Rex resting at his feet, he realized something profound. They had both been broken in their own ways, Daniel by loss, Rex by trauma, but fate had brought them back together for a reason. The tears from that shelter weren't just about recognition. They were a promise. And this time, nothing in the world would tear them apart again.